Levon Aronian, with the white pieces, plays the move knight to g5. And this isn't a random drop of a knight onto g5. And you don't play a move like this unless if you have a plan. And right now, what it does, it attacks this h7 pawn 3 times in total. And if you play the normal looking move for black, which looks very intuitive, h6, which will kick out the knight and save it from being captured by any of these two pieces, then Levon had this in mind. To go to e4, attacking the knight, attacking the bishop, so you have to trade here. After the trade, white has this knight clamped down onto c5, and you can see why is this so important, because it's controlled 3 times, which means that it's much harder to play the move c5. And you can see that white is also intending to play the move b4, never letting this white light square bishop escape from that pawn chain. And so in this moment, Vishy Anand, who is playing the black pieces, will be playing with a trapped bishop on b7 for a very long time. So is he then just doomed to give up this pawn? But little did Levon Aronian know, Anand prepared this exact variation at home, and he plays the move c5. And this move hangs another pawn and offers up 2 pawns here. This is absolutely crazy. He just explodes the board wide open, and this is his deep preparation. And with the move c5, he also unleashed his light square bishop here. And you're going to see one of the greatest attacks with his genius strategy starting with c5. Now, we have first knight takes h7. We have 2 pawns hanging, and Levon chooses to take the h7 pawn. Now, you can see that white, the knight is attacking the knight, and it's attacking the rook, so it's threatening an exchange. And if you just take the knight here, you're just going to be down the pawn, just like this. You're just down a pawn, and this is going to be a worse position for you. But you don't actually have to take back. What you can do is what Vishy Anand played in the game, which is the move knight to g4. And why is this so good? It offers up this rook for the exchange, but look at this. With the move c5, look at this diagonal. The bishop pair dominates the entire center and attacking the white king. And there's going to be a lot of attack with queen to h4 as well. Look at all these squares. So with this in mind, if you're playing this as white, you can't allow 2 great bishops like that. It's almost doomed. So that's why Levon Aronian in this position plays the move f4. And f4 just says you can't stop both bishops, but you can at least stop the dark square bishop attacking this h2 pawn. Now we have a trade in the center. And you can see this bishop is still really bad, and white is still threatening to capture the rook for the exchange. And this is when Vishy Anand's second part of his genius strategy starts. In this position, what is the best move? He plays it. Bishop to c5. Vishy Anand sacrifices a whole bishop, and if you take the bishop, then we have knight takes on c5, attacking this bishop twice with the queen and the knight, and if you move back with the bishop, then we have queen d4 check, you go to h1, and now we have the move knight to f2 going in, rook takes f2, because if you don't take, there's going to be smothered mate here. Absolutely crazy. So you have to sacrifice after king h1, you have to sacrifice the knight, sacrifice the rook, and then you can play queen to f takes f2 here, and look at this. With this bishop that you opened up, you're threatening checkmate. On g2, you're threatening checkmate just to playing queen to e1, check, and this is pretty much unstoppable. So that's why you can't actually take the bishop here. And in the game, we have the move bishop to e2. Levon Aronian spends about 30 minutes on this move, thinking about that exact same variation, and probably also capturing the rook. Probably thought about a lot of things, but that was a critical variation there. So now if white captures on the next move, then after the knight captures back, then the queen and the knight won't be attacking the bishop because it's already moved. But here, Vishy Anand finds another brilliant move. And he uses this principle from Tao that if you have multiple pieces hanging, offer your opponent another one. So he plays the move knight to e5. And because if you offer another piece, when it's your opponent's turn, they can only take one. And this is one of the most insane sacrifices of all time. And this isn't just a simple game anymore. This is psychological warfare. Now we have Levon has many choices here. He can take the rook here, he can take the bishop like this, or he can take the knight like this. Okay, so if he takes the bishop, then we have to move queen to d4, check. And pretty much you have to sacrifice your bishop, go to h1, and just like we saw, it's going to be a deadly attack with the bishop and the queen. So you can't do that. And if you decide to capture the knight, it's the same story. Queen to d4, check. And white has to block with the bishop, and after the move king to h1, you can't stop all this pressure on the king side here. So you can't actually capture any of the pieces. So that's one of the things that makes it very brilliant. Now we have the move. You still, as white, when black has a lot of attackers on the king, you have to neutralize the attack by trading the piece. And that's what he does. He trades the knight, but first, Anand captures the d4 pawn and captures the bishop. Now we have to move knight takes f8. He finally, I know there's a lot of attack here. There's not much he can do, but so he just takes the rook here just to compensate. And you can see it's very obvious for black that they want to play the move queen to h4, going for the checkmate attack here, right? But this is a very tricky and very sneaky trap set by Levon. Because if you do go to h4 here, then white has this move queen to h7. And the reason why this works is that now you're forced to trade the queens here. And after this queen trade, now if you look at this resulting position, we have bishop, bishop, knight, bishop, bishop, rook. So white is just up the exchange, and this is still a slightly better position for black, but there's no more attack anymore. And so Levon will survive this game. So that's why we have to move f5. And the move f5 just stops that whole idea with like the diagonal and the queen trade. And now we have to move knight to g6, because black was threatening to play the move queen to h4, and white plays knight to g6 to stop that. Now we have queen f6. Now we have h3, attacking this knight, but not really, because after this capture, if you take this knight, then it's checkmate on either of these two squares, because look at this. The queen is covering that whole file, and that bishop, and this bishop as well, all contributing to the attack. Very, very beautiful. So you can't actually take the knights there. So after Vishy captures, now we have queen to e2, just putting a bit more pressure and getting closer to the king's side for safety. Now we have the move queen h5. And queen h5 is actually threatening the move queen queen takes h3. Well, why does that move work? Because that pawn is pinned by the bishop here. That we opened up that monster bishop. Here, Levon Aronian plays the move queen d3, just protecting that square so that that tactic doesn't lie there anymore. But this is the final position where Vishy Anand shows his great mastery of chess, and he plays the move bishop e3, sacrificing his bishop for the last time, and this is called an interference tactic. And what it does is now, if you take with the queen, then you can take back, so that's not good. But if you take back with the bishop, then we have checkmate. And this is pretty much loss for white no matter what he does. I hope you enjoyed this game, and if you liked, please subscribe.